Everybody's working for the weekend, but there are a couple of Reds players that need to work a lot harder than the other guys in the desert.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. His name is Jeff Carr. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We are lifelong baseball fans. We have been talking about the Cincinnati Reds in podcast form for a combined 14 years. We love baseball. We love the Reds, and we love talking about those things with you. On today's show, there has been a trend recently of prospects or newly debuted players getting long-term contracts. So the question is, why haven't the Reds done this? Well, we're going to try and answer that a little bit later. In a few minutes, we will look at the pitching matchups and the advantages that the Reds may or may not have this weekend out in Phoenix as they take on the Diamondbacks. But where we are going to begin is with who needs to have a good series in Arizona for the Reds to continue to climb and scratch and claw their way into that final wild card spot. We got all that for you on today's show that's brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the United States. Visit the number 5 HEWin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Bummer. Ends October 31st, 2025. All right, Jeff, let's get into this because you're absolutely right. There are a few dudes that need to really show out in this series out in Arizona. It is crunch time. It is go time. The Reds are within reach of that final wild card spot, and now is not the time to drop the ball. See what I did there? The Reds got to play well this weekend.
Yeah, the Mets keep holding the Reds close. I mean, they're making sure that the Reds don't fall out of this race at all. They go up so early on the Nationals yesterday and absolutely just collapse. There's no other way to say it. The Mets do what the Mets do every single year. And if the Mets are going to be successful in their venture and making sure that they don't make the playoffs, we need to see some good performances this weekend from a few key Reds. And it starts with Matt McLain. You and I are on the same boat that Matt McLain needs to be in the major leagues. But we are hitting the point in the season, Steve, where you cannot give everyday playing time to a guy that's got to figure it out. And that's the hard part in all of this. As much as we do not believe that there's any value in him figuring things out in AAA, which, by the way, is almost done for the year, we also have a hard time penciling him into the roster every single day when it comes to the lineup. And so that's going to be the hard part with this because he's got to get going soon because here in September, Sal Stewart's going to be here. And Sal Stewart's going to be able to give regular rest to everybody. Gavin Lux has had a nice season with the batting average and the on-base percentage, and he's going to be pushing for more looks at second base there. You also can make the argument that Spencer Steer can play second base, and Terry Francona, we know, is going to figure out a way to shoehorn Santiago Espinal into a game. And if Matt McLain's going to leave the door open, then that's where he's going to get shoehorned into. So Matt's got to get going, and it's got to be this weekend in Arizona.
Yeah, his last 5 games, Jeff, 16 plate appearances basically, and in those 16 plate appearances, 2 hits and a walk. That's not going to get it done. He's going to have to step that up. He's going to have to perform. I would love to see a return of a little bit of power from him out in Arizona. Let's see him play long ball a couple times. I think that would really go a long way in actually kind of getting him going and building his confidence up. But you're right. He really is kind of one of those guys that needs to go out there and show out. You know who the other dude is for me that needs to get to Arizona and have themselves a weekend is Austin Hays. Austin Hays needs to find that power stroke as well and kind of help fuel this lineup. The best versions of this Reds lineup early in the season were when Austin Hays was going. He was kind of the linchpin for getting everybody else going. I can't overstate how important it is now moving forward. The Reds are just this close. They've got to get it together as far as everybody firing on all cylinders. And for me, it's those two guys. If you get Matt McLain and Austin Hays going at the same time, this lineup is going to fly and other teams aren't going to understand what happened. They're going to look around and be like, where did these guys come from? The Reds are scoring runs in bunches. That's what it's going to take, though. It's going to take guys like that have been struggling for months to really get it going and really deliver at a key time in the season.
Well, and he was signed here as a little bit of a prove it year because of the different injuries that he went through in 2024, the craziness of his health that really messed up his season. And so his contract expired. The Orioles didn't bring him back and nobody was giving him a big deal. So he's like, let me sign 1 year with the Reds and let's try and prove this here thing. I don't know what he's proved, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, he's been fine, right? He's not been great. And that's what we need to see. Like early on, he was pretty good, and then he just kept getting hurt. And now he's been healthy for a long period of time, but during this period of health, he's been very mid. And I think that if you were to power rank this Reds lineup right now, he's been passed by Noelvi Marte. I might argue he's been passed by Miguel Andujar. And I think that that's an interesting spot for him to be in because I mean, we haven't seen anybody really take hold of this outfield. Like, I think that Noelvi Marte has from an at-bat standpoint, but he still needs to work on his fielding. But, like, nobody else has really announced themselves as, hey, I'm here to help out TJ Friedl. And Austin Hays kind of felt like he was that guy coming into the year, but I haven't seen it yet. And I've seen some good performances here. I've seen some bad performances here. We need to see more from him moving forward, especially in this series. The interesting thing, and we'll get more into the pitching matchups here, is that it feels like the Reds match up well with 2 out of the 3 starting pitchers. And what they do tonight against Ryan Nelson is going to be very intriguing because he's had a good season. But Austin Hays feels like one of those guys that in the middle of the order can just keep the ball rolling. I think that's why, because I keep seeing people ask this whenever he's there. Whenever they see Gavin Lux in like the cleanup spot, they're like, he's not a cleanup hitter. And traditionally, you are correct. But the Reds have had a hard time putting somebody in that 4 spot that just keeps the lineup going. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need to see from Austin Hays. And you know, line drive doubles and things like that. I don't necessarily need to see the long ball from him, but just keep the lineup going.
You know, and I would like to see Noelvi Marte keep doing what he's doing. You talk about, you know, he's proved it with the bat. His last 5 games, Jeff, he's got 2 hits in every game of his last 5 games. 2 home runs along the way there. He has been delivering. I'm starting to believe. I'm really starting to believe in Noelvi Marte.
I believe in his bat. The thing that I need to see is his glove, and this is going to be a test for him because the outfield in Arizona is cavernous, is spacious, is vast, is insert.
So what you're saying is TJ Friedl better do his stretches before the game is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we're going to see him flying all over the field because whoever's in the corners is going to be like, yo, Teach, a little help here. But Noelvi Marte's got the athleticism to cover the ground. It's just we have seen some really bad routes to balls. We've seen some questionable plays that he has made and then some questionable plays that he hasn't made. And I chalk that up to dude's still brand new in the professional side of this to the outfield. So hopefully we see more of that progress there defensively because that's really where his big question mark is. I'm starting to just absolutely pencil him in as an everyday player moving forward. What I don't have penciled in is his position because it's not third base anymore. Ke'Bryan Hayes has third base locked up for the next 4 years. So where Noelvi Marte fits in is going to be very important to how he plays defensively.
Yeah, it's not very often we call for somebody to need to have a big defensive weekend to fuel the Reds, but we really do need Noelvi Marte to have a big defensive weekend out in right field and just cover that territory, try and run a better
just call it a clean weekend. Just make it clean.
Yeah, just no errors. And if I don't ever have to see him kind of doing that run with his one arm stretched out with the look on his face of hope that the ball just might find it. Yeah. It would be nice to not see that this weekend is what I'm saying.
And it's going to be tough in Arizona because you have that big outfield, but you also have the dome and all of that stuff. It's going to be like 157,000 degrees or something like that. So they'll have the roof closed and you're going to have to figure out how to track the ball with the roof behind it. I don't know if that's easier or more difficult. I've never played outfield in a dome before, but I just know that there's so many different angles with which Noelvi Marte is seeing the game defensively this year. And it's clear that there are just sometimes he's not used to that angle. And it's kind of, I mean, I just keep going back to that fly ball, the easy fly ball that he caught in Los Angeles that he made look anything but easy because he just took the wrong route and he didn't see it quite well enough until it was like right there. Thankfully, dude's got better reflexes than you or I do. That's That's for darn sure. But yeah, there's definitely a couple of guys that we're looking at right here that have got to go when it comes to certain areas. Matt McLain for sure, Austin Hays for sure, both guys with the bat. We just need to see that glove for Noelvi Marte this weekend. But I know this, Steve, the pitching side of things presents a couple of interesting matchups, including one guy that I don't think we can accurately predict at all for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape ginger lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or you just need a little extra push to power through your day, like when the Reds are on the West Coast and playing some late-night baseball, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down that bevy cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip at the number 5 HEWin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters Tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. If you're an everydayer out there, you are awesome. Appreciate you. And if you're not an everydayer, hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app, because we're on all of them out there. And when you do, you get Tim Daniel on the Reds postcast live at the end of every ball game. No, he's going to be staying up late tonight for it, and he's going to be happy that Saturday and Sundays are much earlier than what they have been the rest of this week. West Coast road trips, man, they're fun. But Tim's got you covered at the end of every ball game. Steve, we didn't necessarily say it, but I think everybody understands it. Reds got to win 2 out of 3 this weekend against the Diamondbacks. And the pitching matchups are intriguing to me because it feels like tonight the Reds might be a push of a pitching matchup, maybe even a little bit more tilted toward the Arizona side. But the rest of this weekend sort of seems like a chance to go get this series.
It does, because you look at tonight's matchup. You've got Zach Littell going against Ryan Nelson. And you're right. I think that matchup probably favors just a skosh to the Diamondbacks. But you get to the next 2 games. Saturday, it's Andrew Abbott on the mound for the Reds. The Diamondbacks got nobody to go up against Andrew Abbott. Andrew Abbott is just continuing to be just such a great, pleasant surprise this season. Heading into that start, he's got a 2.28 ERA, 3.52 FIP, and his WHIP is 1.07. He's doing things. And then on Sunday, it's Brady Singer, who, as you pointed out in show prep, leads the Reds in wins for anybody that wants to take that stat. Anyway, he's going against Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen not having a good year at all. I am all in on the Reds winning on Sunday with Brady Singer on the mound. So 2 of 3 seems very, very, very doable here. And if that's how it goes, that's the Reds once again doing exactly what we ask of them. So let's see what kind of fun, crazy turns this weekend takes for them to do it the most frustrating way possible. Because that's what we believe in around here. We
wanted 4-2 for the weekend, and they've got a really good shot at this. And I kind of mentioned in that tease just a moment ago, Saturday intrigues me because, yes, the pitching matchup is overwhelmingly in favor of the Reds with the way that Andrew Abbott has pitched this season. The guy on the mound for the Diamondbacks, Nabil Crismatt, has pitched exactly 14 games in the last 3 seasons. Just 25 total innings. He did have 1 start so far this year. He pitched 5 innings in Colorado, which, that's like a AAA team anyway. But he pitched well against Colorado. So whenever he takes the mound and whenever the score bug comes up on the TV and you're going to see he's got an ERA of 1, oh my gosh, it's because he's pitched 1 game this year. So, and he gave up 1 run. So I'm not super concerned about him, but he also feels like that kind of guy that's going to do 1 of 2 things against the Reds. He's either going to throw no hitter for 6 innings or he's going to give up 6 runs in the first and get chased.
I know we're a Red show, but just because you're making fun of the Rockies. They split with the Dodgers. I just want to say they
That is
split
true.
with the Dodgers.
True.
Go Rockies. That was like their World Series. You know, they're hanging a banner this week out in Colorado.
Split
with the Dodgers.
Anyway,
back to our regular Reds programming, Jeff. This is one of those games. So I don't know if this happens more to the Reds or we just notice it more because we cover them every day. But it feels like there's an awful lot of times where we run into matchups like these and the Reds end up making that dude look like Cy Young. The Reds cannot afford for that to be for this to be one of those games. We talked our last show, Jeff, those games, they cannot have one of those games this weekend. They have to go out there and get the job done. And this is a prime opportunity to get the job done because Andrew Abbott is going to do Andrew Abbott things. The Reds lineup needs to deliver against an inexperienced pitcher that doesn't stick. And the reason he doesn't stick is he's a journeyman guy. He's a fill-in. So the Reds need to go out there and do damage, and they need to do it early.
Yeah, it's interesting because like his 2 years that he actually pitched a lot in were 2021 and 2022. He was a member of the San Diego Padres that year. So our buddy Carlos Guevara probably knows a lot about him. Both years he had an ERA under 4. In 2021, he had an ERA of 3.76, and in 2022, he had an ERA of 2.94. But he's always been a reliever. Like his couple of games that he pitched last year for the Dodgers were out of the bullpen. The couple of games that he pitched in 2023 for the Padres and then for the Diamondbacks for one game were all out of the bullpen. And they were like in mop-up duty. They weren't, high leverage situations. So this guy's kind of a fill-in. So this is the kind of guy that you cannot let beat you because there's no excuse for it. And he's right-handed too. The other part of that is we're not talking about any old guy that can throw a ball with his left hand. He's a right-hander. So this feels like the kind of day that the Reds lineup is going to be tested, not because they're facing a test-worthy pitcher, but because they're facing a pitcher that they should hit. And when they face those guys, they usually crumble. And that's going to be the tough thing in this series because the Reds need 2 out of 3 in this one. Kind of feels like Saturday you should pencil in a win, but every time we seem to do that, we seem to pencil in a loss because of different things. Like we need to see clean baseball this weekend. We need to see the lineup hit who it needs to hit, and then just get out of here with 2 out of 3.
What do you make of Zach Gallen this year? You look at him historically, he's been really good for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then this year, he kind of just seems to have run into a wall. And I know that happens from time to time, especially with pitchers. They just have an off year. Is this who he is now? I mean, he's only 29 years old. He's got a lot of life left in that arm. And yet he's just not seeming to get it done this year. He's thrown 150 innings, though. I mean, he's still going out and putting in the work. He's just not quite getting the results.
The strange thing about it, too, is this is his contract year. Like, you figure a guy's going to shove in his contract year and get paid, and he's doing anything but. I mean, he has had the kind of year that looks like so crazy in terms of his career. His career ERA is 3.6, and his season ERA for this year is 5.2. So that tells you just how odd it's been for him. But he's also not really done too much in like the negative department. Like his homers are up a little bit, but not like crazy. His hits are only up by a decimal point. So it's not as if he's giving up a ton more of those. The thing that's really hurt him is that he's no longer striking guys out like he used to.
I was just looking at that.
Yeah.
He's a guy from 5 years ago, 2021, strikeout per 9 at 10.3. This season, his strikeout per 9 is 8.
He has 3 top 10 finishes in the Cy Young voting. Now, none of those since 2023, but you're talking about a guy that's done it before. And so I have a hard time saying that the Reds should go against a guy like this, but Lord knows you should not be giving him a reason to feel good about the rest of his season. You should not be that team that does that. Like he should do that against the next team, not you. And so the thing that's really hurt him this year has just been base runners in total, and he's not getting that swing and miss. So long at bats, push the advantage, force him to throw a lot of pitches at you, and then you're going to chase him early and get into that Diamondbacks bullpen that has been suspect due to a lot of different injuries, and then they also traded some guys too.
So you look at that matchup. That's the Brady Singer start. So I have to think that that would behoove the Reds to jump on him early, because you just quite never know with Brady Singer, right? Is it going to be good Brady or bad Brady? We just don't know. So I look at that game. I have a feeling, my gut tells me the Reds are going to go into that game and it's going to be the game for the series. I think they're going to drop one of the first two, just because that's how they roll for us. And it's going to come down to that final game of the series for them to get out of the week where we ask them to be, which is 2-1 in Arizona. Right. So
exactly.
I kind of see it playing out like that, Jeff. As much as I would love for them to just win the first two and put that baby to bed, I just don't know.
No, I agree with that. And this feels like vibes are high right now, which usually that means we're in for a little bit of a lull.
Exactly. All right. This is what I know. The Reds have to go. They have to deliver. They have to perform, and they have to get it done in Arizona. But listen, Jeff, we teased this earlier. There is a trend in baseball that's kind of starting to become a little bit more of a trend, which is teams locking up prospects or recently debuted players almost immediately to long 7-8 year deals. And the question is, why aren't the Reds doing this as well? We're going to talk about that coming up next. If you can't watch us here on YouTube, make sure you get us in the audio feeds. We're on pretty much every single podcasting app that's out there. If you find one we're not on, you need us to be there, hit Jeff up in the comments or on social media. He can make it happen for you. All right, Jeff, let's get into this. This is an interesting topic. I'm kind of interested to hear you present it first, because I have my thoughts. But we've seen now several teams sign up either guys that haven't even debuted, or their first week in the big leagues, they get an 8-year contract. And we're starting to see this more. And it's made you kind of wonder out loud, why aren't the Reds doing this?
Yeah, we've seen two, both from the AL East this year. One just happened actually this morning. Samuel Basallo for the Baltimore Orioles signed an 8-year, $67 million deal. He's played exactly 4 games in the major leagues. Guess they must have been really good. I did look up the stats. He's got 2 singles and a double. Must have been a really good double. But no, he is a really good catching prospect. And so I think that they wanted to lock that down. Earlier on this season, the Red Sox signed Roman Anthony, who just homered, that I think has landed in Yankee Stadium. I'm not sure, but he destroyed a ball yesterday against the Yankees. But he signed an 8-year deal, $130 million, with performance incentives that could push the deal to $230 million. And he had played 46 major league games before he got that deal. And then, of course, you have, I think this was 2 years ago, the Milwaukee Brewers signed Jackson Chourio before they ever called him up to an 8-year, $82 million deal. And they had incentives and escalators in that as well that could bump it up even more. They also had 2 team options on the deal for $25 million a piece. So it could be, and they're team options, not player options, not mutual options, that could be a 10-year deal for Jackson Chourio. So what I wonder is, why haven't the Reds pursued this? Why haven't the Reds done this? They've got a lot of guys, and we know from 2023 that like the youth movement was alive and well. And it felt like if the Reds were ever going to do this, it was going to be with one of them dudes. Now you're kind of to the point where I don't necessarily know, like maybe Noelvi Marte, but he's starting to hit the ball so well, you might not be able to do something like this, but you just don't see an opening for the Reds to do this right now.
No, if the Reds were ever going to do this, it would have been with Elly De La Cruz when he came up, because we kind of already knew his trajectory. We saw how special he was going to be. If they were ever going to do it, it was going to be with Elly. I mean, you look at this from the big picture and you ask yourself, why haven't the Reds done this? And think about the players they would have done this with over the last 5, 6, 7 years. The first name that comes to mind is Nick Senzel. And does anybody want to be part of a Nick Senzel 10-year deal right now? Nobody wants to be part of a Nick Senzel 10-year deal right now. So you have to look at how much risk there is in doing a deal like this. And you have to be a team that would be willing to leave all that money on the table and cut and run if they had to, and take that kind of a risk. The Reds have never been that team. The Reds front office has never been the cutting edge risk takers, the ones that go out and do something that makes you go, wow, they're really leaning into going for it. Have we ever said that about a Reds front office? Not in my lifetime, I don't think. So I get from an operation standpoint, the way this team has always operated, why this hasn't been a thing that they do. Now, did they miss the boat on maybe doing this type of thing with Elly, yeah, they did. That
gone.
would have been the guy. That's the only guy I can think of where they were when they came up that I would have been like, yeah, do that deal. I wouldn't even have been like that with Nick Senzel because you just don't know. You don't know how guys are going to perform. It's the same argument I was making about Sal Stewart the other day is the same argument I make just about giving a deal like this to pretty much anybody. Now, will it work out? Won't it? I don't know. It's a big, big roll of the dice. And I'm fine with the Reds having not done this. But it would have been nice if they had done it with Elly, and especially in hindsight, right? Hindsight's always 20/20.
I guess he would have been the one guy, because even let's go back a few years and say they did it with either Jonathan India or Tyler Stevenson. Like, you probably feel better about it if it's Tyler Stevenson, but you don't feel great about it. And I kind of, you're right. Like, Elly's the only one. And I don't even know that Scott Boras would have done it then, because I think as much as we saw it, Scott Boras saw it too. So he was never going to do that even before he got called up, because the idea with this, and this is what I mean, and this goes even back to what the Braves did with Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies whenever they signed them to super long-term, what seemed like a lot for guys that really hadn't played that much, but now it looks like a great, I keep wanting to say gamble. It's not a gamble, a great discount when it comes to those contracts. I think that the whole point.
Well, no, but gamble's the right word, because that's what they did. They gambled, and it just so happens that they got blackjack in those deals, right? These other deals that you're talking about, we have no idea. The deal that was signed today, we're not going to be able to evaluate till at least halfway through. We're not going to know for 5 years if that was a smart move or not. And when you look at the Reds' resources, they don't have those kind of resources to take that chunk of money and go, here you go, let's find out about it in half a decade. The Reds don't do that. They don't have that. And so you're right. Gamble is the right word. The Braves gambled big time and they hit blackjack.
Let me ask you this too, because I mean, the part of this is you're locking a guy up for all of his arbitration and then for a couple of years past his arbitration and things like that. Like from our fan standpoint, looking at Elly De La Cruz, that sounds like a pipe dream, because that would have been amazing. But there's not a whole lot of other guys that I think have really just been that good to lock them up long term. And I wonder if, knowing that risk and knowing that gamble and knowing the impending economic changes that are coming to the sport, is that something that if you asked Bob and Phil, had you considered this with Elly, would you be surprised if they said no because of how things are going to change?
No,
because
not at all. Not at all.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
There's a part of my brain, as much as I disagree with, I'm saying this is the perspective of them. I'm not saying that like this is how I would run it if I were them, but the perspective of Bob and Phil are that the economics of baseball are going to be so different in a couple of years that they need to know whether or not they're even bought into this. And I'm not saying that I think that they are even considering selling. They'll never have anything that makes them as much money as the Reds. But at the same time, like, if they do change the economics of baseball to a salary floor, and if they do add some sort of thing that changes the way that arbitration goes for teams and stuff like that, like the Reds are banking on arbitration and banking on the fact that they keep these guys for 5 years and there are controlled raises with them. I think that's why we've never seen them do this in the past. And I think that's why they're not doing it now, because they're a little bit tentative of what is actually going to be the economic structure of baseball in a few years.
I think that's a fantastic point. I've said many times that I felt like this Reds front office was basically trying to position the team to whatever the other side of the strike looks like, because that's what I'm calling it. It's coming. Whatever the other side of that looks like, the Reds want to be able to hit the ground running. And there are a lot of teams that are going to struggle in what that transition looks like from this model to that model. But the Reds are pretty much primed to be fresh start ground, number one in line when we get to the new system because of the way they've set up these contracts. So that's a great point that I didn't consider when we started talking about this, that I think you're spot on about. They are definitely operating from a mode of being ready for whatever the new economics look like. And this commissioner, as much as we dislike him, he has leaned in this week on things he's going to do before he retires in 2029. He is going to realign baseball. He is going to change the division structure. He is going to redo all of the TV deals. He is
And
going to
add
do
two
a
more
lot of
teams.
things. Add two more teams. Expansion is coming. And, you know, he is going to put a stop to the Mets and the Dodgers. That's what he's going to do. Whatever the new economics look like, it's going to put a stop to the Mets and the Dodgers. And I think the Phil Castellinis and, you know, the guys that are owning teams like the Kansas City Royals and the Milwaukee Brewers and all these small market teams are just chomping, waiting, because it's going to be much more NBA style competitive balance league when Manfred's done with it in a couple years. Like that or hate that, that's the direction baseball is moving.
Let me ask you this, and I'm not saying what the Reds would do or what the Reds could do. I'm asking you, Steve Offenbaker, the general manager, if you could sign Noelvi Marte, not Elly De La Cruz, if you could sign Noelvi Marte to an 8-year, $67 million deal right now, would you? Because you would do it for Elly, no questions asked.
I would do it for Elly. I wouldn't do it.
Would you do it for anybody not named Elly?
Currently on the roster? Nope.
Yes.
Nope.
That's kind of the hard part. That's the hard part of this. Would you do it for Sal Stewart?
No, absolutely not.
Because I know there's people thinking that out there too. But that's how I wanted to end that, because I really found this intriguing. And I think that it is an economic inequity with other teams that they're able to take advantage of this. And I felt like this should be something that the Reds could do as well, but they are choosing to abstain from. But I don't necessarily know that I like wholeheartedly disagree with their stance on that. I just found it a very intriguing topic. I know we're going to talk about it a lot more as we get into the offseason, because there's going to be some contract extensions that need to be done. And whether or not the Reds are actually going to do it based on what's coming down the pipe remains to be seen. And by the way, you mentioned the commissioner and talking about realignment and all this other stuff, the expansion. Had a great conversation over on the Squad show that Jess posted here today with that. Had one of our Dodgers hosts, Harry Ruiz. We had Justin Latta from Lockdown Guardians, and of course Sully and myself all talking about what realignment could look like. It was a fun conversation. Go check that out now as we are done here on today's Locked On Reds podcast. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you're not subscribed, you got to this point, obviously you should hit the subscribe button, because we're going to be with you every single day the rest of the way, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.
You are just Dr. Seuss all the time nowadays. What is with all the rhyming?
Sign Noelvi Marte. Maybe today. I just may go down by the bay.
Stop it.
What do you say?